My name is Terry Clark, and I have been asked by various different people to please make a recording of what I do when I speak to various different groups and community agencies and students in our community. So that's what I'm doing. Please know I'm speaking just as a mom, and with that, I hope that you'll enjoy a lot of what I have to say, maybe even laugh out loud, and that what you don't find so enjoyable, I hope will cause you to think. And with that, I'm going to introduce you to my family. Now, my husband and I were high school sweethearts, and shortly after we graduated from college, we got married. Can you dig the rock and threads? Oh, yeah. And shortly after we got married, we decided to move to Douglas County, Nevada. And it was with purpose and forethought that we decided to raise our two children right here in Carson Valley. This is my oldest son, Wade, with his brand new baby brother, Nicholas. Can I have an aw? Come on, let me hear you say aw. Now, even if you don't like babies, you look at that shiny, ball-headed baby with that infectious smile, and it has to turn the corners of your mouth up just a little bit. That's one cute, shiny, ball-headed baby. Can I have another aw? Aw. Now, Nicholas was a pirate long before Johnny Depp, and Wade and Nicholas were like Mr. Day and Mr. Night, and by that I mean they were exact opposites. I'm sure some of you can relate to having a brother or a sister who's the exact opposite, like maybe you've always been shy and they're outgoing. Maybe work and school has come easy for you and it's been a struggle for them. Exact opposites. Well, Wade and Nicholas were exact opposites, Mr. Day and Mr. Night, but there was one place where they found a common ground, and that was in trying to make Mom go crazy, and they were good at it. This was supposed to be one of those pictures that moms put in the Christmas cards, to brag about to all their friends and relatives about what angelic children they have. Yeah, well, this was in the days before Photoshop, and I had tried for 30 minutes to get these two little stinkers to smile at the same time, and I finally gave up, and this is the picture that I sent out, but this would be my boys. Now, we were a typical Carson Valley family. We camped, we fished. This is an area in Nevada called Horseshoe Bend. A lot of people in this area are familiar with it. And this is a dirt road leading into Horseshoe Bend. So that is not a river or a creek. That's just spring runoff going over the dirt road. And Nicholas actually caught that fish in the dirt road. Pretty nice sized fish, especially for a dirt road. Now, Nicholas was a very pragmatic young man, and one year he had saved all of his birthday money and all of his Christmas money and bought himself this fine watercraft. And while this is not Silver Lake, we would go to a lot of the different lakes in the area, and one time when we were at Silver Lake, there's an area there where there's like an inlet of water with like a little rock island out in it, and he comes up to me and he's all like, Mom, want to row out to the Rock Island by myself, go fishing. And I'm like, you're my baby. You can't be rowing out there by yourself. You're only 6 years old. So what's a kid do when Mom says no? He goes and asks his dad. And Dad's like, quit trying to make a sissy-la-la boy out of him. If he wants to give it a try, let him. So he takes all of his fishing gear and his fishing pole, and he puts it in his boat just like this. Here's the fishing pole with the baited hook hanging out the back, and he rows out to the little rock island, and he gets there and he pulls his raft up on the rock island, and he gets his gear out and he casts his line in the water, catches a fish, reels it in, puts everything back in the boat. Now he's got the fishing pole in with the fish hanging out the back of the boat, and rows back into shore, pretty as you please, safe as can be, 6 years old. Now, Nicholas was a natural athlete, and he excelled at every sport he was in. And if his dad and I weren't coaching or co-coaching a team, then we were sewing those banners and bringing the oranges to halftime. Now, at this point, I need to let you know that what I wanted to be when I grew up was a mom. A mom like on those TV sitcoms, the black and white ones like on Nick at Night or Antenna TV. I wanted to be, the one that's they're in their high heel shoes and they're in their dress, and every morning when it's time to go to school, her hair's all done and her makeup's all done, and she stands there at the door with the sack lunches all made, and they're neatly folded, not all crumpled up, and she hands each child a sack lunch as they go out the door and gives each child a kiss on the cheek. And nobody's missing homework, and nobody's having a bad hair day, and brothers aren't slugging each other over whose turn it is over the bathroom sink. Everybody's happy, and it's wonderful, and that's what I thought was the perfect family. Well, one day I realized that I kind of did have that perfect family thing going on. I mean, it was my turn to be doing the dinner dishes, and in our house, in the kitchen, we have a great big picture window that overlooks the backyard. And I was looking out the window, watching the boys playing football in the backyard. I mean, they'd been carrying a regulation-sized football since they could walk. And I realized, they're tossing the football and catching the football and tackling each other and rolling on the ground. And I mean, really, that's how guys bond, right? That's how they hug, is tackling and rolling on the ground. So I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. That's that perfect family thing, right? Dad in the backyard with the boys tackling, and I'm feeling pretty good. And I remember looking down, washing the dishes, feeling really good. And then I looked back up, and you guys, I saw out the picture window. There they were in a huddle. You know what I mean by huddle? I mean, Dad's got his arm around each son. Each son has their arm around their dad. Brother has arm around brother. I mean, when does that ever happen, right? I thought I was going to bust. That was just so cool. And I remember feeling so good washing the dishes. And then I looked back up again, and there, out the kitchen window, were 3 bare behinds. What was going on in that huddle? That common ground? How can we gross out Mom? And really, Dad? I went from perfect TV mom fantasy back to reality like that. Boys. Now, when we could finally afford a hunk of cement in the backyard, Nicholas didn't want the basketball hoop down low, like when kids go back to elementary schools and they can really slam dunk and hang from the hoop, couldn't be all cool. He wanted it at regulation height so that he could be competitive. Now, Nicholas was a stereotype jock through and through, to be sure, but he did have this very sensitive nature, this sensitive soul, and it showed up in ways like, for one, he wanted a kitty, and 2, when given the opportunity to choose any kitty in the litter, he chose the runt, and he named it Squirt, and he cared for that kitty, and he nurtured that kitty, and that cat lasted longer than any cat we ever had. Now again, we were a typical Carson Valley family, and the dad would take the guys all hunting. And the little bubble over Nicholas's head says, "Someone please tell me how I went from manly man with a gun to a mermaid wearing coconuts." Now, Odyssey of the Mind was a cognitive, creative problem-solving competition, and Nicholas's team won at the grade level, and then they won for the whole school, then they won for the whole county, and they actually won the entire state of Nevada and went back to Washington, D.C. to represent the state of Nevada. Now, anyone who lives here in Carson Valley knows that if you do anything the least bit spectacular here, you are on the back of a flatbed truck going down Main Street in the Carson Valley Days Parade. And it didn't bother Nicholas one bit to be going down Main Street wearing a little mermaid thing and a wig and coconuts. He thought that was pretty funny. Now, when Nicholas got to middle school, he went to Carson Valley Middle School. And at that time, I was working with the school psychologists, with the naughty kids. So it was just a little bit embarrassing when I got a call from the vice principal. Vice principal equals discipline. And she's all, "Terry, I have Nicholas here in my office, but let me just put him on the phone and let him tell you why he's here." So Nicholas gets on the phone and he's all, Mom, you're going to be so proud of me." And I'm sitting there thinking, "Sweetheart, you're sitting in the vice principal's office. How are you going to put a spin on this? So I'm proud of you, right?" But first, let me stop and go back to when Wade went to Carson Valley Middle School. when Wade went to Carson Valley Middle School, what the kids all did was called Flip Up Friday. And that's when the kids would go around and flip up each other's shirts. The boys would flip up the boys' shirts. The girls would flip up the boys' shirts. Where the problem came in was when the boys would flip up the girls' shirts. Well, the administration, of course, tried to put a stop to it, and everything they tried really didn't work until they finally put a huge kibosh on it, and one young man was actually arrested for statutory rape. Well, Wade came home and he was furious. He was so mad. He was ranting and raving, and Nicholas didn't even go to Carson Valley Middle School, and he was kind of sucked into the cycle of ranting and raving. Life is not fair. Oh boy, let a girl do something wrong. Do they get into trouble? No, but let a boy do something wrong and they are nailed. That's just not right. And they just went on, and I tried to wait for like a lull, in the ranting and raving. Like, seriously, guys, can you not see the difference between flipping up a boy's shirt and flipping up a girl's shirt? No, they couldn't. It just wasn't fair. Life sucks and girls have it easy. And finally, I had to say, enough. Here's the deal, guys. Pretty much, you've got three choices. One, you can try to create a change. I don't know, work within the system, start a petition or something. Or two, you can accept this. This is what we call a double standard. And life is filled with double standards. So you can just start getting used to it. Or three, you can do what you're going to do, but you will suffer the consequences. So now back to Nicholas sitting in the vice principal's office. Gonna make me proud. Mom, you're going to be so proud of me because, see, here's the thing. See, Mom, I remember that conversation that we had when Wade went to Carson Valley Middle School, about, how it's okay for girls to do some stuff, but not boys. Well, see, Mom, at Carson Valley Middle School, we don't do Flip Up Friday anymore, Mom. See, Mom, what we do at Carson Valley Middle School now is, see, Mom, see, Mom, what we do at Carson Valley Middle School now is, we pants each other. But Mom, you're going to be so proud of me because I did not try to pants her back. I remembered it's okay for girls to do some stuff and not guys. See, I know you're proud of me, right? But Mom, I walk into the school and this girl comes right by me and she jerks on my pants and tries to pants me. But Mom, I did not try to pants her back. See, I knew you'd be proud. But Mom, I walk into the classroom and she jerks on my pants and tries to pants me again. And Mom, I did not try to pants her back. See, you gotta be proud, right? But Mom, all day, everywhere I went, she's jerking on my pants and she's trying to pants me. And all day, Mom, see how proud you are? I did not try to pants her back. But Mom, it was 7th period. And we went into the library, and I go by her one more time, and she jerks on my pants and tries to pants me. But Mom, I did not try to pants her back. I just showed her what she'd been wanting to see all day. I'm so proud. Now, towards the end of middle school and the beginning of high school, Nicholas decided he didn't want to be a jock anymore. He wanted to be a cowboy. And so he bought himself an old pasture horse, and eventually he joined the Douglas High School rodeo team, and he got himself a job on a dairy. You guys, I don't even want to drive by a dairy. Who wants to work on one? Now, I show you this picture of this pickup truck because I want you to understand this was our brand new pickup truck when Nicholas was 2 years old. And this would be the mode of transportation that Nicholas got when he turned 16, 14 years later. Now, Nicholas was fine with that. My boys did not expect a BMW in the garage when they turned 16. But I want you to notice, this is not a Dodge Dually diesel cowboy truck. This is not a quad cab. This is not even a king cab. This is a four-wheel drive pickup truck with a heater and no air conditioning in this here truck. Now, again, Nicholas was happy to have it, but this was, a family truck after all. And here's the thing, you guys. When when we get like a new vehicle, we kind of nest it. We make it our own. Maybe we'll put little perfumey things up or put our makeup in the glove box, But So Nicholas had to change this from a family truck to, a guy truck. This is how he did it. One day they were at the dairy and the cows were going through the milk barn, and they would go through about at eye level. And one day this cow went by and this turd had come out of the cow, and it had come out wrapped around the entire tail, a hunk of tail of a cow, so it was clear around the hunk of tail. And Nicholas looked at that and he's like, oh, that is so cool. Like, how could that even happen, right? I mean, that's got to be like a miracle or something, right? I got to have me that. So he whips out his pocket knife, hacks off that hunk of hair, and ties it to the rearview mirror. But he wasn't done nesting his truck yet. One day at the dairy, they were castrating bulls, and he took the sack from the castrated bull and he put it over the gear shift knob so that as it dried, it conformed to the shape of the gear shift knob. So what he had was a one-of-a-kind, custom-made leather gear shift knob cover. And who wouldn't want one of those? Oh, yeah. Whatever. So Nicholas bought himself a horse for $800, and if you know anything about horses, you don't get much of a horse for $800. But he managed to train himself up and his horse for his first year of rodeo well enough to do some calf roping and some team roping with it. Now, rodeo is really kind of a generational sport. Usually, grandpa's done it and taught dad, and dad teaches son, and usually you live on a ranch with fencing and cross fencing and chutes, and so you can let the cattle out and you have cattle to practice on. And Nicholas had a hunk of cement in the backyard, and he had parents who grew up as city kids, so he had no business being competitive. And yet at one rodeo he managed to come in second in the state of Nevada for steer wrestling. The hardest job Nicholas ever had was having to sit still at a lemonade stand waiting for the traffic to stop. And I know a lot of people out there can relate to the fact that it is way harder to sit still than to be up and to working hard and moving. Now, Nicholas loved rural life. His pig was grand champion market swine of the Nevada State Fair. Now, if you don't understand state fairdom, let me explain to you that grand champion market swine is comparable to high school All-American quarterback, winning the state championships for speech and debate. Whatever your passion is, it's winning state championships. It's huge. And his cow would win best of show at dairy show after dairy show. Who knew there was such a thing as a dairy show? Not me. He went from mowing lawns in the backyard to cutting hay on the dairy. Now, the particular family that were running the dairy farm, they belonged to a generation of families who had owned this dairy farm. And yet the current family who was managing it had not been able to take a vacation for their entire management time. And so it was very unique and special that the summer before Nicholas was a senior at Douglas High School and the summer before he went off to college, this family left him in charge of their dairy and went on a 10-day vacation. You see, you can't just call up a substitute dairy place and get a substitute dairy farmer, and you can't just put a closed gone on vacation sign. You have to have someone that you rely on. And this teenage kid had developed such a rapport with the family and built up a trust and faith, and they had such a respect for his responsibility level that they left him in charge. So that speaks a lot to Nicholas. Nicholas decided to go to a small agricultural college in Eastern Oregon. And when we send you guys off to college, we kind of have to have this trust and faith that we've raised you well enough to make good decisions and do a good job. And whereas some of Nicholas's decisions were a little bit marginal, when push came to shove, he was a very responsible young man. This little sign says, "Worship me and we'll all get along just fine." A girl that he went to college with was a scrapbooker, and she sent me this picture, and that pretty much sums up Nicholas. While Nicholas was at Treasure Valley Community College, He joined the rodeo team. He was elected president of the rodeo club, and this picture was actually featured in the calendar that the college put out. They put it out to try to recruit kids to their college through their extracurricular activities and to raise some funds for the school. Now, again, that sensitive nature of Nicholas showed up in that he knew it was his dad that was suffering from that empty nest syndrome. You know, Wade's off at UNR, Nicholas is off in Treasure Valley. And so the first summer that he came home after college, he brought home his dad a little yellow lab puppy to keep his dad company. Now, how many young men are going to think to do something like that, let alone follow through on it? Pretty special. Now, when kids go off to college, we as parents, we have to, again, have trust and faith that we've raised them well enough to make good decisions, and yet we really don't know what's going on while they're at school, and we only know what the kids tell us, and let's be real honest, they're only going to tell us what they want us to know, right? So I had to wait for the letters of recommendations to see. So I looked at this one. Nick was an excellent student with exceptional skills, both in and out of the classroom. While at Treasure Valley Community College, he was involved with the rodeo team and was one of the most motivated and academically talented students that I worked with. In fact, Nick received an award from the Ag Department for being the outstanding freshman student his first year. Nick excelled in his agricultural classes, was always willing to learn, and was never afraid to ask questions. I feel that Nick was one of the elite students at Treasure Valley Community College. Well, as a parent, I'd be like, yeah, my kid, right? But here's the problem. First of all, I pretty much have always done a fairly good job looking at my kids objectively. And second of all, I am guilty of stereotyping people. And I apologize to anyone out there whose name is Tiffany, but I see the name Tiffany, and I'm thinking, Tiffany, some cute little petite blue-eyed blonde young teacher that Nicholas has schmoozed and wrapped around his little finger to write this awesome report. Because women love Nicholas. Whether they were 2 years old or 22 or 52 or 82, women love Nicholas. So I'm thinking, yeah, right. So I looked at this one. Nick is willing to meet people where they are. He is very resourceful. Nick is a get-something-done person and has developed into a great peer leader. He has a smile on his face most of the time. He has a great deal of self-confidence in his ability and his work ethic. Nick is one of those individuals that could do about anything he wanted to do, and he would be successful. He is courteous and friendly and has a good sense of humor. Roger Finley. Now, Roger was one of those crusty old cowboys, kind that don't say much less it needs to be said, so I'm thinking, all right, Nicholas, guess you did a good job. All right, way to go. Now, while Nicholas was at college, he met a cowgirl, and he fell in love, and he proposed, and shortly after they graduated, they got married. They got married in a canyon up in northern Oregon, and it was in a pasture, and this fawn actually came down out of the mountains and wandered around during the wedding ceremony, and then stood and posed for wedding pictures. Just kind of bizarre. Now, Nicholas's young wife, Shauna, decided she wanted to continue her education at a particular veterinary technician school in Denver. Now, let's think about this. Nicholas was born and raised in a small town of Carson Valley. He went to college in the small valley of Treasure Valley. Now they're going to move to Denver. Big city. No family, no friends. So Nicholas is like, that's okay, honey. That's great. I kind of got my eye on something anyway. And he took some seminars, got himself a small business loan, and started up his own business. And this is some of the work that he did. And he was quite successful. Nicholas, the son, the brother, the husband, the businessman. And then he met a woman in one of his wife's tech classes. And then he divorced his young wife. And then we discovered he was using methamphetamine. Now, I didn't know that much about methamphetamine. at the time. So I got busy and I got on the internet and I researched it. And I found out that methamphetamine was not just poor white trash cocaine, which is all I had known about it. That meth had crossed all socioeconomic boundaries. That meth was used by high-powered white-collared workers so they could focus, so they could work long hours and make lots of money. That it was used by construction workers who did heavy physical labor so they could work long hours and make lots of money. That it was used by pretty little high school girls. They were just going to use it for a week or two just to lose some weight so they could fit into that pretty little prom dress. That it was used by moms who just had babies just till they lost that extra weight they gained while they were pregnant. That it was used by 4.0 high school and college students so that they could stay up late, so they could cram, so they could get those grades to get into that good college, to get into that good grad school. But Nicholas, why did he use it? So again, Terry, be objective about your kid. Ride a bucking bull. Sure, I can do that. And he did. Go down Mott's Canyon, catch an air over icy moguls. Sure, I can do that. And he did. Start up and run his own business and be successful at age 21. Sure, I can do that. And he did. Try drugs and quit any time? I don't know. Now, in my research, I came across this acronym called HALT. HALT, like stop, halt. The H is for hungry, the A is for angry, the L is for lonely, and the T is for tired. And that encompasses life. It encompasses ninth grade health curriculum. In life, in school, we learn that you never want to let yourself become any one of these things, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, to an excess. When you are at any one of those things to an excess, you are vulnerable to making a bad decision. For example, even on diets or whatever, we are told, eat well-balanced meals, eat regular times during the day. Because the minute you let yourself get too hungry, that's when we're walking down the supermarket aisle and those Cheetos just say, come on, take me, and we take that bag of Cheetos. Or we're driving down the street and McDonald's just kind of drags our car in through the drive-thru. We're vulnerable to making a bad decision. Angry. We work on having conflict resolution, solving problems at a verbal level, so that we don't become so angry that we are vulnerable to making a bad decision, one that we can't take back, for which there is no do-over. Lonely. We learn the importance of family support and community support, knowing the resources that are available in our community, our faith-based support, 1-800 numbers. But the problem is when you let yourself get too lonely, you're not thinking straight. You're vulnerable to a bad decision. You forget about those 1-800 numbers, and you're vulnerable to making a bad decision, sometimes one that you can't take back, for which there's no do-over. And tired, we all know we get crabby when we're tired. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Each one individually, when we're too much, we're vulnerable to making a bad decision. We put them in combination with each other, and it increases our vulnerability. So I kind of came up with this scenario, something that could have happened. I don't know. Like maybe one day Nicholas was on the job and he's working the cement, and when you're working cement, you can't quit. And maybe it didn't set up, so maybe he had to work it all through lunch. Maybe he had to work it kind of late into the evening, so that by the time he went home, he'd missed lunch and he's really hungry and he was tired. Now, Nicholas kind of liked to be tired. It did make his whole body relax, and that was good. But too tired is another thing. But he was always good-natured, smile on his face most of the time, and I can see him getting into his pickup truck and driving home, and he'd fall into that cowboy lingo, and I could see him saying, I'm tired and I'm hungry, but I'm heading home to the little woman, and she loves me so much. I'll bet when I walk in that apartment door, I'll bet she jumps up and runs up, throws her arms around my neck, and plants a big one on me. Oh, yeah. I'll bet she's wearing a little sexy something for me. Oh, yeah. I'll bet the whole apartment is filled with the smell of a home-cooked meal. Oh, yeah. I'll bet she's got candles lit Yeah, it's going to be good to get home. And what if he had that idea in his head, and he's tired, and he's hungry, and he walks in the apartment door, and instead of all that, what if he sees his young wife sitting on the couch wearing sweats with her hair slicked back in a ponytail with no makeup on and her nose in a textbook, which is her job, because her job is to go to school. But what if, because Nicholas has this other idea of what he might want going on, and because he's tired and he's hungry, what if today this happens to tick him off? And what if he's like, what's up with this noise? I work hard all day to put you through school and you can't even have dinner ready? I don't need this. I'm out of here. At this very moment, he's hungry and he's tired. Now he's angry. And the minute he turns on his boot heel and slams that apartment door, he's lonely. Because he's in the big city of Denver, where he has no family, no friends, no support system built up. So he is pretty vulnerable to making a bad decision, being hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So what's he probably going to do? Oh, I don't know. I'm thinking he's going to head on down to the local bar, have himself a couple brewskis. Oh, now he's really going to be in a good place to make a good decision, right? And the evil that is drug pushers, the evil that is drug traffickers, they know when you are vulnerable. And I can see that evil saddling up alongside of him at the bar saying, hey, buddy, looks like you had a really bad day. I got something to make you feel a whole lot better than that there beer. And when at any other time Nicholas might have said, get out of here, jerk, because he's hungry and he's angry and he's lonely and he's tired and he's had a couple beers, maybe he just says, what the heck? But I don't know. I don't know why Nicholas decided to use drugs. Because this is all I have left of my son. This hard plastic box that holds his ashes. And what did Nicholas get for his decision to use methamphetamine? He got a 4-year downward spiral spin into the textbook world of methamphetamine. He got the explosive anger that is indicative of meth use. And that explosive anger got him arrested. Arrested? My son? For domestic violence. My easygoing, smile on his face most of the time son, arrested for domestic violence? How can that be? How can that be? Oh, he got anger management classes, and he got probation, and he got community service. He got everything except addressing the root of the problem, the methamphetamine. He lost his home. He lost his house. He lost job after job. He lost his vehicle. The only thing he had left when he died were a couple of boxes of childhood memorabilia with the scrapbooks in them, you know, the kind that have his little handprint, or the first poem he wrote in first grade, or his swim team medals, or his Pop Warner trophies, or his championship jackets with his name on them. And as a mom, I wanted to think, well, that's because he loved us, and that's because he felt connected, and he cherished these family memories and these childhood memories. But that's not why he still had those boxes. Because that's not how meth works. Meth slams into your brain and it squeezes out that piece that is emotional connectivity. And the only reason Nicholas still had those cherished childhood memories was because nobody else wanted them. He couldn't hawk them. They weren't even worth a trip to the dump. And he started carrying around a metal pipe because he became paranoid. Because that's another gift from methamphetamine. And he carried that metal pipe in a backpack. And he carried a backpack because he was homeless. My son was homeless. He slept from meth friend's house to meth friend's house. And you guys, there's a place out on Highway 80, out east, out towards Sparks, where there's this big, huge Legends Mall and this big, huge Shields building and the Sparks Marina. And people go out there and they generally see a wonderful day of fun. But that's not what I see. I see the public restrooms. Because that's where my son spent many winter nights, curled up sleeping on a cold, filthy public restroom floor. And that's what my son got for his decision to use methamphetamine. And then we got a call to go to the emergency room. And I walked in, and I felt like I was watching some sort of TV movie because it just wasn't real. And I walked over to him, and I rubbed his little head because he had like a fuzzball thing going on. And I looked at his body, and his teeth didn't look like this. His gums weren't all pussy, and his teeth weren't rotting off at the gum line. His teeth were as even and white as the day they came out of braces. And this person is alive and posing for a picture, and my son's hooked up to life support. And I looked at his arms, and yes, he had a couple of dime-sized meth sores on his arms, but he hadn't scratched through the skin, through the meat of the muscle, down to the bone after psychotically induced imaginary crank bugs. This person's alive posing for a picture, and my son's on life support. And everybody has seen these shock value posters, this guy after 3 months of meth use, and this woman after a year and a half, this woman after 10 years. That's the face of an addict. That's what a drug addict's supposed to look like. She's alive and posing for a picture, and my son's looking pretty much like this, and he's on life support. I've got organ donor nurses coming up to me and saying, would you consider donating your son's organs? And I'm like, what? And they're like, but first, we've got to declare him brain dead. And I'm like, brain dead? No, operate. Fix him. His dad's over there, and he's pounding his fist on the hospital wall. He starts banging his head on the hospital wall. How can this be happening to our son? How can this be happening to us? He couldn't stay. He had to leave. But for whatever sick reason, I had to stay. I had to make it real. I mean, we were a family. We played practical jokes on each other. Maybe he was going to jump up off that bed and go, gotcha, Mom. But he didn't. And so instead, I stood there. And I watched as they pulled that tube out. And oh my God, it was a really long tube. And then I watched as his chest heaved up in this big expanse. And then it collapsed down. And then I stood there. And I waited for 10 minutes. 10 really long minutes. To see if he would breathe again. And he didn't. And so they put the tubes back in to keep his organs alive. And then we got the word that not one single tissue, not one organ, nothing of my son could be kept alive by someone else. Because he was like this near perfect shell with a body full of destroyed parts. And later I thought, well, Terry, you'd done your research, you did the homework, you knew in your brain about meth, you knew that the precursor drug of pseudoephedrine went into the making of it, and starter fluid, and paint thinner, and Drano, and lye, and ammonia hydroxide, which is fertilizer for crying out loud, goes into the making of it, and Epsom salts, and chloroform, and Freon. If all of that goes into the making of methamphetamine, why did it not cross over thoroughly into my brain to realize that just because he looked okay on the outside, something's got to give, and it was his insides. And let's be real honest, alcohol destroys your insides. It might take a little longer, but it destroys your insides. Think about it. Prescription drugs, even when they're used appropriately. Think about the commercials on TV. Even when they're used appropriately, how much time of a commercial is spent on the disclaimers of what it can do to the other parts of your body. We just have to be natural and be healthy. This is my baby. This is my little boy. Now, I would give anything to be able to stand up in front of you and say, this funny little face, this funny little boy, grew up to be a drug addict. And he's in recovery. And I am so proud of him because he works every day. He works hard at it, and he's meeting his goal, and he's doing it, and I'm proud of him. But I don't get to do that. I have to stand up here in front of people and say, this adorable face grew up to be a drug addict, and he's dead. But here's the other piece of it, guys. It's a mother's job to keep her children safe no matter how old they are. And so, not thinking with my brain, because that's not how moms think. Not when we're scared or when we're in crisis or when we're in grief. We think with our hearts. And so every day I'm thinking I must have failed because I didn't keep my baby safe. Maybe when he was growing up I was too strict, and that's what did it. Maybe when he was growing up I was too lenient. That's it. No, I wasn't. Maybe there was one time when I grounded him and I should not have grounded him, and I was just wrong, and that's what did it. Or wait, maybe there was a time when he got away with something, and if I'd only caught him, if I only knew and I grounded him. I don't know. All I know is that I didn't keep my baby safe. And I miss him. Drug addicts, regardless of their drug of choice, are a drain on the system. There's almost always vandalism or theft involved in drug use. Violence, domestic violence, and child abuse are particularly part of the methamphetamine addiction. Who pays for public vandalism to be fixed, or in the stores, the theft that goes on? We do, in the form of higher taxes and higher costs on the items in our stores. If a drug addict goes to an emergency room, even though we're experiencing a resurgence and a renewal and a whole different thing going on with our healthcare system, if a drug addict goes, chances are he doesn't have a job. And if he doesn't have a job, chances are he doesn't have health insurance. And if he has cash, what are the chances he's going to pay for his hospital bill? Probably not. So who pays for all this? We all do, in the form of higher healthcare costs and higher insurance costs. 80% of all the inmates who are in prison are there on some drug-related charge, and 80% of that 80%, their drug of choice is still methamphetamine. Who pays for prison? Who pays for the health care in prison? Who pays for the dental care in prison? We all do, in the form of our taxes. Social services. When there's a drug addict in the family, it creates such chaos and upheaval that oftentimes the families end up on welfare. Who pays for TANF? Who pays for welfare? We all do, in the form of our taxes. And public schools. You know, most of our kids do not use drugs. Very little. It's my understanding it's in the single digits, the number of kids who experiment and or use drugs. But there are a whole lot of kids who live in a drug environment home, a home where the parents are having people coming and going through all hours of the night, where there's horrible and angry voices going on all night, where there's fists going through the drywall, where the kids go to the cupboards to get food and there's nothing there. And that's either because the parents have been too trashed to go to the store or they've spent all their money on drugs. How can a kid come to school the next day and study when he's been up with that all night, night after night? And so that kid usually needs some extra time or extra care or extra services. And who pays for that? We do, in the form of our taxes. And law enforcement will tell you that the most dangerous and heavily armed people that they come across are meth addicts when they're tweaking and meth labs. Who pays for these additional special units like the SET teams or the gang units or the narcotics teams? We all do, in the form of our taxes. People will ask me, did Nicholas have children? And I have to tell you, I thank God he did not, because 11% of all of the children in the United States are affected by some illegal drug while they're growing in their mother's womb. Notice I said illegal drug. That's not counting the drugs like alcohol and tobacco, which also affect that fetus growing in the womb, where these babies are born with learning disabilities, behavior disorders, and physical disabilities. Let's say that a child is born and is not affected by all this. They're just living in that home. I don't care how good your drug paraphernalia is. That residue, whether you smoke it or snort it or however, whether you inject it, the residue from the drugs gets in that home. It gets in your hair, it gets in your clothes, it gets on the carpet and in the couches. And kids come crawl up on mom's lap and they nuzzle, or kids crawl on the floor, or babies put their hands on the coffee table to pull themselves up so they can stand. And where do babies' hands go? These kids come out of these homes testing positive for drugs. And let's say there's a meth lab, and let's say it's better that we don't have as many toxic hot cooking labs with as many horrible toxic chemicals causing terrible burns to kids and people when the places blow up or spill. But still, the special teams have to come in and take down these labs. And like I said, they're one of the most dangerous and heavily armed situations that law enforcement comes across. So they come in their full assault gear because these people have to go home to their families, to their wives, and they need to protect themselves. But it's pretty scary looking seeing people walking around with assault weapons and shields and things like that. That's what the kids get to see, storming in and taking their parents down. That's a real fun thing for a kid, isn't it? And then the kids are walked out, and some of the kids that can't walk out, they're carried out by people in hazmat gear. And then they're stripped of their clothing is destroyed, and the kids are showered before they can even have a hug because of their potential toxicity. For every 1 pound of methamphetamine that is made, there are 5 to 6 pounds of toxic waste. Oh yeah, maybe you can paint a building or tear out the carpet, but sometimes entire buildings have to be taken down. Sometimes the dirt has to be scooped out and replaced to protect our groundwater from the toxins that might absorb in. The red indicates all the different parts of the brain that methamphetamine in particular affects. I told you about how methamphetamine affects the emotional connectivity, and you don't care about anybody or anything. It affects your learning, it affects your memory, and it also affects your reward system. Now at this point, please, you biology major and you scientists, just take this for what it is. This is just kind of a way to help us little people get a gist of how methamphetamine affects the brain, how we get that high. We have in our system a natural chemical that is produced called dopamines, and the dopamines are our reward system. It's what makes us feel good, and it goes up. We get a reaction. The body said, hey, make those dopamines. The dopamines go up and send messages to the brain, and the brain sends messages throughout the body to feel good. I'm having a good hair day. Oh, tell that body to feel good. Put a smile on your face because you're having a good hair day. Teacher hands back a report to a kid. A+ on it. The brain, tell that body to get those shoulders back and put that head up because you got an A on your report. It's our natural chemical reaction. It's the way our body works. With cocaine as a stimulant, it gives you a high, and the way it gives you a high is it gets in there and it floods your system. It makes the dopamines flood into your brain and send all these really, come on, feel good messages. Methamphetamine is different. Methamphetamine disguises itself as a dopamine, and it bypasses that dopamine system, and it shoots up into your brain and gives you 3 times the high that you get from cocaine, which has flooded your system. 3 times the high. And because it's bypassing those dopamines, every time you take a hit off methamphetamine, your dopamines are over here going, whoa, well, that stuff really makes you feel good. And you take another hit off methamphetamine, and your dopamines are like, wow, I can't make you feel that good. And you take a hit off methamphetamine, and your dopamines are like, well, I guess you don't need us anymore. And so they quit being produced. And never being able to reach that high again, regardless of the stimulant that you use, you want to get that high again, but it's your first high that's always the best, they say, and so you chase that high. So you take it more often because you want to get that high, and you can't quite get there, so you take more of it to get that high because you want to get there because you haven't gotten there yet, and so you take more of it more often because you want to get that high, and you can't get there, so you're taking more of it more often. And with methamphetamines, your dopamines maybe have stopped reproducing. So you've got nothing to make you feel naturally even, let alone naturally good. And then, heaven forbid, your wonderful drug dealers have laced your meth with something else, something really nasty, and you get on a runner, and you're on that runner, and you're on that runner for 2 days, and you're on that runner for 5 days. You could be on a runner for 7 days, and you're going, oh, I got to get off this. I know I got to come down. This is not good. I got to eat. I got to get some sleep. This is not good. This is not good. So you start drinking, drink a little beer, and the beer's not doing it. And start hitting the tequila shots, and it's not doing it. Try a little bit of pot, and it's not doing it. So you try a little heroin. Oh, yeah. Heroin's going to bring you right down. So now you got yourself another fine cycle. The meth to get you high, and the heroin to bring you down. And you've got nothing natural, no dopamines, to make you feel even. And that's why you really need to go for professional help, for places that understand the drug you're on, that understand addiction, that understand that a 28-day rehab for methamphetamine ain't going to probably cut it. Yes, your dopamines will start reproducing again, but it can take up to 90 days. So at a 28-day rehab, you might not have started reproducing any dopamine. So you've got nothing to make yourself proud of being clean and sober for a week. Shoot, you don't have anything to make proud of being clean and sober for 24 hours because you have no natural chemicals helping you do that. This is my son. This is my Nicholas. Now, Nicholas, darling, I love you. But you would not have found a cure for cancer. And you would not have won a Nobel Peace Prize. But Nicholas's gift was in bringing joy to the world. And if you worked with Nicholas as a co-worker, or if he was your supervisor, or even if he was under you and you were his supervisor, you would have so much fun at work that you would want to come back to work the next day. You would. And you would have been doing your work efficiently, accurately, and you'd be having fun. And I don't care whether you were putting data into a computer or shoveling horse manure out of a stall. You would go home and you'd be feeling good. And how awesome would that be for people to come to a dinner table together feeling good about their day and sharing feeling good and just having their bodies be relaxed and smiles on their faces. And then kids would maybe want to go off and do their homework with a little lighter heart, with a little more of a positive attitude because their parents are sitting there positive at the table. Maybe the kids come to the table positive and the parents are so excited about the positiveness they see in their kids. It eases them off. They start relaxing and feeling really confident that they're doing a good job with their kids. Now, a lot of kids, when I speak to the 9th grade health classes, I usually am there on a Friday, and I will say to kids, here's the things, you guys, it's Friday night, and here's what I want you to do. I'm thinking that maybe a lot of you have worked hard all week because it's Friday, and maybe you had reports due or projects due or tests, so you worked hard all week, or maybe you put it off to the last minute and you were just really up late last night working on it, getting it done. So you're so tired that you oversleep your alarm, and maybe you don't eat breakfast, but even if you do, you oversleep your alarm, so you're too late, can't eat breakfast, so you rush off to school so you're not tardy. And you get to school, so you're tired from working hard all week or being up really late last night and hungry because you didn't eat breakfast. And you come to school, get yourself things turned in, and then you start thinking, relaxing a little bit, thinking about the party Friday night. Yeah, it's gonna be an awesome party. And so you go to lunch and you're so excited about the party. You're talking with your friends about what you're gonna wear, how you're gonna get there, who's gonna be there, and you're all excited. And maybe you don't have time to eat lunch either. And so then you end up and you go home and you go up to Mom and you're like, Mom, here's the thing, Mom, there is this party. It's going to be so awesome. Parents are going to be there. It's all cool. Honest, Mom, I swear to God. Please, I worked hard all week. I'm getting all B's in my classes. You know I'm a good kid. Please, can I stay out till 1 o'clock? Please, 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 please. And moms, Friday nights are kind of a scary time for moms because whereas in life there's lots of choices that don't have negative consequences, it's just one choice is better than the other. On Friday nights, to a mom, That's indicative of a time when there are some really negative consequences to choices that are out there. And so moms, being scared, we're thinking with our hearts, not with our brains, and we're going, absolutely not. You may not stay out till 1 o'clock. Your curfew is 11, and you will be home by 11 o'clock. So that ticks the kid off, right? I mean, really, they're trying hard. What's up with that? And so they leave the house and they're mad. So now they're hungry, and they're tired, and they're angry. And they go to the party. And maybe they go to that party, and their best friend's not there. They're late. So now they're lonely. So they're hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And so what I ask of kids when I speak to the kids, I say, look, all I want, when you are faced with a decision that might come up to you, I want that face to pop into your brain. I want every eye looking only at that face. And when you're faced with a decision that you know has a negative consequence, I want that face to pop into your brain. And I want the word halt to pop into your brain. Halt. Stop. And I want you to self-assess. Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? What that lady say about hungry? You're vulnerable to making bad decisions when you're hungry or angry or lonely or tired. And shoot, man, I'm all for. Ooh, what happened to that kid? She was guessing maybe what happened to her kid when he made that decision. Maybe he was all for. Okay, all right. I'm going to halt. I'm going to stop. I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired. I'm not going to make a decision. Because when that person comes up to me and says, I'm going to take you over to your best friend's house. Go on, I'll give you a ride over. No worries. I'm not going to get in a car with that person who's been drinking or that person I don't know. And if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, looks like you had a really bad day. I got something to make you feel a whole lot better than that there beer. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to say what the heck because I'm vulnerable to making a bad decision. I'm going to halt, and that's it. And if one person out of the 8 years that I've been doing this, if one person out of the really and truly thousands of people I've spoken to in small groups of 25 to 50 people, if one person will just have halted, will have self-assessed, will have made the decision to not make that decision, then it will be worth the hours that I spend talking to kids and groups and parents. And it will have made Nicholas's life make sense. Because you guys, I have tons of movies and videos to remember my kids by, especially Nicholas. We had great family time. But I can never have this. I can never, ever hold both of my sons in my arms at the same time. Now, my oldest son, Wade, he's awesome. I am so proud of him. He is probably the most awesome young man in the world. But he's an only child now. If he wants to go hunting with his brother or camping with his brother or backpacking up Job's Peak with his brother, he can't do that. And his dad finds a new passion of scuba diving, and he goes down and he sees a beautiful coral reef and he thinks, I can't wait to show Wade and Nick. Oh, that's right. I can't show Nicholas that. No mother should ever, ever have to put up a date of birth and a date of death. I have a whole lot of other stories that I can tell about how Nicholas died, how they found him, some of the things that we tried to do. But this is my main presentation. And I hope that you take it for how it's meant. To understand addiction. Doesn't mean I excuse it, but understand it. And understand those people who are either clean and sober or contemplating a bad decision. Understand the ripple effect. Yes, your parents might say, when you're 18, you can do whatever you want. Or they might say, You might say, it's my body, I can do whatever I want. Yes, that's true, but you know what? There is a ripple effect to all of that. And every day, I suffer the ripple effect of Nicholas's decision. Thank you for your time.